7:14 a.m. A laundromat on a street you chose because it had 2 exits and no cameras over the door. You're folding a shirt that isn't yours, in an apartment that isn't yours, under a name that isn't yours either. Across the street, a woman sits in a parked hatchback, watching the same door you're about to walk out of. She's been there since 6:50. She hasn't touched her phone. You don't know if she's waiting for a ride, a coffee shop to open, or you. You fold the shirt slower. You count exits without moving your eyes. Somewhere, 11 months ago, a piece of paper with your name on it got filed in a drawer that never stops being checked. You don't know which thread finally pulled tight enough to lead her here. You just know that somewhere in your old life, someone said something to someone, and it landed on a desk. 11 months earlier, 3 people still knew how to find you if they wanted to. Your brother, your ex-wife, and the man who used to be your sponsor. Level 1. The file opens. A federal fugitive warrant doesn't come with a spotlight. It comes with a case number. Your file lands with a task force that runs dozens of names at once. Deputies rotating through a caseload that never actually clears, just reshuffles. Nothing about your case looks urgent on day 1. Your last known job ends without a 2-week notice. Your name drops off a lease. Your car gets sold for cash to a man who never registers it. For a while, the file barely moves. There's no reward posted, no press conference, no photo on a wall people stop to look at. You're not the kind of case that makes anyone's career. You're the kind that gets worked steadily, in the gaps between everything louder, by people who have learned that patience closes more cases than urgency ever does. A file like yours doesn't expire. It just waits for someone to make a mistake they don't know they're making. Level 2. The network takes shape. Every person leaves an outline of who they loved. Investigators don't start with you. They start with everyone who knew you before you disappeared. Old co-workers, a landlord, a cousin 2 states away who hasn't spoken to you in years. Most of it goes nowhere. A knock on a door, a few questions, a card left on a counter. People are rarely hiding anything. They're just startled that anyone's asking. Your ex-wife answers in her work clothes, gives short, clipped answers, and closes the door without slamming it. She means every word. She hasn't heard from you and doesn't expect to. Your old sponsor, a man you haven't spoken to in 3 years, remembers your name before he remembers your face. He answers everything honestly, because he has nothing to protect. By the 2nd month, the file has a shape. 3 names circled. Everything else has gone quiet. Level 3. 2 fall away. A cousin whose silence turns out to be nothing more than distance. An ex-wife who moved on so visibly, so publicly, that watching her stops making sense within weeks. New job, new relationship, a life with no room left for you in it. That leaves your brother. Not because he's done anything. Because he hasn't. No new number, no sudden move, no change in routine at all. He still works the same job, drives the same truck, goes quiet in exactly the way he's always gone quiet. Investigators don't chase noise. They watch the one person whose life looks untouched by yours disappearing. Because untouched isn't the same as unconnected. Level 4. The one who remains. Your brother is 4 years older and has spent his whole life being the one who doesn't ask questions. He didn't ask when you left the first time, and he doesn't ask now. What he does every Thursday night, without fail, is drive 40 minutes to a bowling alley the 2 of you went to as kids and bowl alone, in the lane you always shared, using your ball. The one with your initials still scratched into the finger holes, still sitting in the rack under his name because nobody ever changed it. He doesn't tell anyone why. He'd probably tell you it's just habit. It's the kind of detail nobody would think to hide, because nobody thinks it means anything. That's exactly why it's the only lead left standing. Level 5. The watched routine. The surveillance itself is almost aggressively boring. A car parked half a block from the bowling alley, logging nothing but a man arriving at 6:40 every Thursday and leaving by 8:15. Weeks of it. He bowls 3 games, always alone, always the same lane if it's open. He tips the same amount at the counter. He drives home the same route. None of it means anything on its own. What investigators are actually watching for is the one Thursday that looks different from every other Thursday. 2 states away, the interest in your ex-wife fades to nothing. Nobody ever tells her how close she came to being the center of a case she has no idea existed. You, meanwhile, have started calling your brother again. Not often, a few minutes here and there, from a number that resets itself every few weeks. He never asks where you are. You've convinced yourself the silence on his end means nothing has changed. 11 months of nothing happening has taught you that nothing is what always happens. So far, you've been right every time. Level 6. One clue isn't enough. 9 days into the surveillance, a delivery driver 2 counties over gives a description that lines up almost perfectly with yours. Height, build, even a scar investigators had noted in your file. For nearly 2 days the case bends hard in that direction. A team reroutes. Then records place the actual person somewhere you've never been. The resemblance was real. The person wasn't you. That's the danger of chasing a single data point. One convincing lead can pull an entire investigation sideways and cost the one relationship that's actually been producing something. So the file on your brother's Thursday nights sits untouched a little longer. What they need isn't another maybe. It's one fact solid enough to move on. Level 7. The ordinary thing. It isn't a wiretap or a slipped confession that breaks the case. It's a second bowling ball. One Thursday, the rack under your brother's name has 2 balls in it instead of one. His and yours, the one with your initials, freshly re-drilled to fit a slightly different hand than it used to. Someone at the counter mentions, offhand, that a man came in on a Tuesday and asked to have an old ball resized. Paid cash. Didn't leave a name. It's not proof of anything. It doesn't say where you're staying or what name you're using. It's just a small, sentimental, almost embarrassing detail. A person getting an old ball fitted to their hand again, like they're planning on using it. But after weeks of watching a routine that never changed, one detail that finally does change is enough to test. They don't move on the bowling alley. They move on Thursday. Level 8. The net closes. Cases like this rarely end with a chase. They end when small, separate facts finally agree with each other. A resized ball, a reused route, a car that doesn't belong on that block, a man who shows up right where the pattern said he might. Alone, none of it proves anything. Together, it stops being deniable. It isn't unusual for a year of searching to end on something almost too small to notice. A receipt, a habit, a hand that still remembers the weight of a ball it hasn't held in months. For you, it's a Thursday at 6:38 p.m. in a parking lot you used to think of as safe because it belonged to a version of your life nobody was supposed to be watching. Nobody rushes the car. Nobody draws a weapon. They wait until you're inside, laces tied, standing at the top of the lane, before a deputy says your actual name for the first time in 11 months. Your brother finds out 2 things in the same hour: that people had been watching him for weeks, and that you'd been closer than he ever let himself believe. He never told anyone anything. He never even suspected. He just kept a lane open and a ball in a rack, out of habit, the same way he's done nearly everything his whole life. That night, the bowling alley closes at 9 like it always does, one lane sitting empty that no one thinks to book. Back at the laundromat, the woman in the hatchback was never watching you. She was waiting on a ride that showed up 9 minutes later and drove her home. The car that mattered was never the one you were counting exits against. It was 40 minutes away, in a parking lot that used to just mean Thursday. You spent 11 months disappearing from strangers. You were found by the one person who never once tried to look for you, because he never had to stop being exactly who he already was.